Hi, and welcome to the Not Your Dad's Leadership Podcast. My name is Lindsay, and I am your host. I am going to be your go to girly for all things feminine leadership, self love, and soft skill integration. This podcast is made for the women out there looking to deepen their leadership practice, whether you're a new manager, a seasoned manager, or starting your rise through the ranks, or whether you're in corporate, startups, or self employed. This podcast will help you tap into your authentic leadership style, cultivate self love, and lead with confidence, compassion, and impact, no matter where you are in your journey. So, welcome, 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 welcome. So happy you're here. I want to just get into it. I do want to start with one thing though. Let's start with the name of this podcast, and I will address this once and once only. His name is not a dig at dads. Okay. We love our dads. We love our uncles. We love our grandpas. This podcast could also be called Not Your Mom's Leadership, Not Your Grandma's Leadership. What Not Your Dad's Leadership means is not your dad's leadership. It's all about rewriting the leadership blueprint. It's stepping away from that old school, tough it out, command and control, hustle over humanity type of leadership. Instead, we're going to lead with compassion, empathy, and trust. And most importantly, it's about creating safe spaces where everyone feels valued and heard and empowered to show up as their true selves without having to fit into an outdated mold. So we're redefining leadership into something softer, more compassionate, and way more human. This is human first leadership, and that includes ourselves too. We're going to treat ourselves as humans, and we're going to treat other people as humans as well. And with that being said, the biggest piece of accomplishing the Not Your Dad's Leadership movement is ourselves. And as a certified self love coach, I have seen firsthand how self love, which I'll just give a quick definition, means how we think about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, and how we honor ourselves. I've seen firsthand how that impacts someone's leadership practice. So that is such an important piece. And through integrating our mindset, energy, and actions, we can deepen our leadership skills, which means we can create a safe place for others and begin to break that cycle of old school toxic leadership. And I've seen it firsthand with myself, with all my clients. And I just want to really reiterate what Not Your Dad's Leadership means. And it starts with us. Leadership starts with you. And then we can integrate those juicy feminine leadership practices and then go more in depth into our soft skills. So that's really what Not Your Dad's Leadership means. And, on this podcast, this intro episode, I'm just going to talk a little bit about, what feminine leadership means and why it's so important right now. And then I'm going to go into a little bit about me so you know who I am and then what you can expect from this podcast moving forward. So, and I am looking at notes because if I don't have notes, we're going to be here for like 2 hours and I have a lot to say on this subject, which is why there's a podcast about it now. So, okay, so why this type of leadership and why is it so important right now? Right now, leadership is broken, and that's just the truth. If I think leaders right now are not being trusted, they are not treating people like humans. People are getting fired, laid off left and right. The hiring practices right now are just out of control. And I know it's ready. It's time we are ready to bring humanity back. And unfortunately, we've really lost that over the last few years. So if leadership is broken, that means leadership development is broken. Like what is happening along the ladder that we are getting these leaders up there who just are not looking at us like humans, and we are just ready for something different. And that something is feminine leadership. Another thing that's happening right now is that leadership development doesn't consider the whole person. And what I mean by that is we're not just like showing up to work, we're showing up to work with everything that has happened to us before we came to work that day. So that means your mindset, your beliefs, the stories you told yourself, the stories that your parents gave you when you're 15, something that happened at your last job, something a partner said to you. Those stories stay in your head, and it's really hard to get out of those, especially, when you're leading. And then your energy, which is really just your essence. And it doesn't mean, drinking another cup of coffee. It means your energy, how you're projecting yourself and how you show up for other people. Um, and then the actions that you take are stemming from your mindset and energy. So we really want to get those all aligned. Like, for example, say that let's take feedback. Say that you're needing to give some feedback and take some feedback. It's, the review process, at the end of the year, the reviews. If you need to receive the feedback, it's really hard to do that. You can do everything that the leadership training tells you to do, but if you have put all your worth and identity into your job, when you get feedback, that's going to be received differently from someone who just, shows up and does their job and doesn't take it personally. And how is that going to affect you as a leader when you're taking everything so personally? And then say you need to give feedback. Let's talk about energy. Your energy is just off. You forgot to listen to your favorite song this morning. You forgot to just get into your own energy. You forgot to meditate. You forgot to work out. And now something is a little bit off, and you have to give this feedback to this person. And when you're not energetically aligned, that's going to come off not the way that you want it to. So we always want to make sure that we're in our energy. And, I'll get more into this in more episodes as they come out. But that's really something that I think is wrong with leadership development right now, is not taking into account the whole person. As women, we've also had our feminine traits trained out of us, unfortunately. And what I mean by that is just our natural intuition, our ability to be empathetic, our ability to connect with other people, our, balance that we need, energetic balance, mindset balance. That has all been trained out of us. So we fit into this type of mold that we've seen above us and that we've seen as successful. And as I stated at the beginning of the section, is that it's really not working anymore. And feminine leadership and getting back and rediscovering our inner leader and our inner feminine leader is so important right now, because we need, I'm not really the biggest fan of like nurturing, but we need that nurturing energy. And just that empathy and connection and authenticity. We all have our own unique way of leading. And that's what makes us powerful, is our own unique essence. And that is what people are drawn to, because when we are trying to fit into a mold and put on a mask, then it's just very inauthentic, and it eventually will burn you out. So we just want to make sure that we're being our most authentic selves in a safe way, of course. And with that being said, a lot of us, and I was someone who did this, is we perpetuate the patriarchy without even knowing, right? Like, as we're climbing to the top, you see like women CEOs, and you're so happy to see women CEOs at the top, but how many of them climb the ladder perpetuating the patriarchy? And I'm going to do a whole episode on this, like little things that we're doing that we don't understand are perpetuating the patriarchy. So how we show up and the actions that we take, maybe keeping ourselves small, which keeps other people small. So we just want to make sure that we're always being supportive, and, we're always just showing up in the best feminine leadership way that we can. And another thing, and maybe this is just a personal thing, is that I think leadership development right now is just really boring. And I want to change that to make it be an exciting, fun conversation that just feels like you're like chatting with your girlfriends over a glass of wine, because that's how, me and my friends talk. We talk about leadership all the time. But, it's not someone sitting at the front telling us how to be, what to be, when again, they aren't taking into account the whole person. So, through my work and just through conversations I've had with people, I'm realizing that just the conversational aspect is just missing. And I don't want to talk at people. I want to talk with people. So I hope that, you are always like DMing me, emailing me what you want to hear, what you think, what you're struggling with, like what isn't working right now. Just let me know. So I just want it to be approachable and empowering and fun. And it doesn't have to be this like, oh, I have to go to leadership training. Like, I get to go to leadership training. Yes, and the way that we do leadership here at Not Your Dad's Leadership is just so much more fun and approachable and empowering. So that is what I want to say about that. I think the system is broken. I think it's broken for women and for, people of color. And it's just LGBTQ. It's just really not a safe place right now. And creating safe places starts with us. So we really need to make sure we feel safe within ourselves so we can make a safe place for others. So I now want to go into a little bit about me. My name is Lindsay. I said at the top of the episode, I'm a certified self love coach and a feminine leadership coach and a Reiki master. So I guess I'll just start at the beginning. I'll try to not go too deep. You're going to hear a lot about me as this podcast goes on, but I'll just give you a quick overview. So I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, suburb of Des Moines, Iowa, and grew up there, and I loved fashion, and I would watch, like 13 Going on 30 and The Hills and Devil Wears Prada, and like my life was changing. This was like the time of like Paris Hilton and, just all the fashion going on E and Bravo and all of those. So, I loved all of it. So I got my first job at first job in retail at Hollister. And throughout college, I worked a ton of retail jobs, and I was working at a department store called Dillard's, and shout out Dillard's. And of course I was sitting there, and of course being me, I was like I loved it. And I was doing like one of those floor sets, and I was just like, how did all of this get here? Like, how I want to be the person who made this floor set. I want to know how all of this got here. Like, what is the chain of command that got these products here that I am now selling? Like, I was really, really interested to know more about that. So, this woman that I worked with was like, hey, you can major at Iowa State. It's a fashion school. And that's like an hour up the road. And I was like, no. I was like, I didn't know that. I thought you had to move to like New York or LA to major in fashion. And she's like, no, it's just right up the street. And it's, a top fashion school in the country. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went there. I majored in apparel merchandising. I minored in journalism because at this time I did really want to work for a magazine. But it was the late 2000s, and really the digital age was starting to take off. And I kind of felt like journalism wasn't going to be like a huge thing anymore, but people are always going to be clothed and people are always going to buy things. So I went with apparel merchandising. Loved it. And I interned out in Los Angeles for a summer and loved it. Moved back to Iowa, and within 9 months I was just like, I like my heart and soul is in LA. Like, I loved it so much. And finally I approached my mom, best mom in the world, love you, mom. And I was like, hey, I'm feel like I'm supposed to be in LA. Like, nothing's working here. I feel like the opportunities for me are not here, and I would like to move out there. So, and she was so supportive and said, yes, let's do it. I can tell you're not happy. So I had no job, no friends, no family in LA. We just packed up a U-Haul. I found a house to live in with a bunch of roommates off Craigslist. And, yeah, within a month I found a job, and I worked at a handbag company. It was like my first taste of the fashion industry. Did the photo shoots, just loved it. Did the trade shows. And then my next job, I got promoted from sales assistant to national sales manager within the first 4 months that I was there. And what a national sales manager is, for people who aren't aware of the fashion industry, is, and you have these in all industries, but I will tell it from the fashion industry point of view, is that I manage all of our outside sales reps. So sales reps around the country, there were 70 that I managed. I managed basically our whole wholesale department. So I managed all of our boutiques. I managed our warehouse to make sure the orders were going out on time. I traveled to all the trade shows and set up for them. I worked with, top retailers in the world. So I worked with department stores. I worked with department stores across the world, beauty stores, gift stores, just all the stores. So I definitely had a lot of responsibility, but it made me learn so fast. And I was so young. And I made a lot of mistakes. And, after that, I worked at another fashion company, and I did the same job there. And then my last job right before the pandemic was a key account manager at another fashion company. So I mainly just focused on the key accounts at that one. So that's kind of my professional journey. And with that being said, there's a caveat to all this. I loved it. And I was really, really, really good at what I did. I was really good at connecting with people. I was really good at coaching them on the product. I was really good at talking with the sales reps with the boutiques and the buyers. I loved it. What I will say about this, I don't want to get too deep into it right now. What I will say is that I worked for very toxic bosses at this time. And that was my model of leadership. So I had these very toxic bosses on top of me, and that was my model of leadership. So that's how I thought I was supposed to be as a leader. So unfortunately, I was a toxic leader. I was really good at managing. I was really good at sales. I was really good at organizing. I was really good at doing the production and getting things out on time. But I wasn't a good leader, unfortunately. And really, a big part of what I do is that I want to make sure, and where the huge self-love component comes into it, is that we always want to make sure that we're being the least harmful versions of ourselves when we're leading other people. So when we are stuck in self-loathing or hating ourselves, we are just, not great leaders, and we are harming others. So I will leave that there. I will definitely probably do a whole episode on my workplace trauma and how I have overcome it and healed with it. But I made so many mistakes when I was a leader, and I was young and learning as I go. But yeah, I made so many mistakes. So when the pandemic hit, I just realized how disconnected I was, and how I didn't even, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't even know who that person was. I was so disconnected. I was a shell of myself before I started these toxic jobs, and I just wanted to reconnect with myself. So I started working with a therapist, and she was like, "Hey," and I was like, "You know what? I'm trying to go in a different direction with my career." And she's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of coaching?" And I was like, "No." Never was offered any, leadership development at these jobs. So I was just kind of thrown into it. Um, and I was like, but, I coached sales reps. I coached and trained new hires. I coached buyers on, what is trending and what will work for their store. I was always talking to people. So it was just such a good fit. And I found this certification program and went through it. And yeah, it was self-love. And what really drew me to self-love is kind of what I was talking about, is I felt so disconnected. I was like, I don't love myself. I loved my job more than myself. We needed to reverse that. I needed to love myself more than my job. So went through that, loved it. And yeah, so now I've been a coach, coaching for 4 years now, and it has been one of the hardest things I've ever done. I'm not going to sit up here and say it's been so easy and fun and I made so much money. When you start a business, you're basically breaking yourself down and really working on your mindset, because there's just so much that goes into it. So yeah, so I really a big part of this podcast and a big part of what I do is teaching you what not to do. I made so many mistakes when I worked in the fashion industry. I've made so many mistakes owning my own business. And, you know, you get to learn from that. And I'm so happy to share. I'm very vulnerable and open about it. I'm very open person. You can ask me most anything and I will answer it for you. I don't a lot of times regularly will come out and say things, but if I'm asked a question, I will go ahead and talk about it. So yeah, that's kind of my story. And here we are. And I just love, chatting with other people. And I want to build a beautiful community. It's already starting to be built over the last 4 years. And I want to keep building it and keep this movement going of, bringing compassion, empathy, and trust and loving ourselves and loving loving ourselves as leaders. So we aren't harming others and we can be the best leaders that we can be. And we own our power, our true inner power, and feel like we don't have to be someone else to be good leaders. We can be ourselves. And it's one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn. You know, I always thought I had to be a certain way. Like I said, I had that model of leadership and I thought that's how it was. That's how it had to be. And it doesn't. And you are okay to break the cycle. And that's really what this is all about. So, moving forward with this podcast, what you can expect is weekly episodes on leading ourselves and leading others. And we will talk about feminine leadership practices, soft skills, and just the mindset and energy and actions that we can take behind the scenes to make sure that we are showing up fully in our power and being inspirational and impactful and just really changing the narrative around what a leader is. And then every few episodes, I will have guests on and we will, be real talks with real people about the state of work and leadership and just what's going on in the workplace right now. And yeah, that's what you can expect from me and from this podcast. And I am so happy that you're here. And I really just want us to start redefining leadership together because when you stand in your power, you can do anything. And I just want to make sure that we all understand that, especially as women, our power has really been, stuffed down so that we can be a mold of what a leader looks like. But we don't have to do that anymore. We can reconnect with our inner feminine and our inner feminine leader. And when I say that, I do just want to make a quick point about this is that, it's not just all feminine and it's not just all masculine. We need a great balance of both energies and both types of leadership to lead well. However, in my opinion, most leadership training is really rooted in masculine. So that's why this podcast and all my work and my coaching is all about reconnecting with our feminine because, like I said, that has been trained out of us. And once we reconnect with it, we can find that perfect balance that works for us. So come along. I hope you come next week and we are going to learn about all feminine leadership skills, soft skills, and really just learn about ourselves. And that's the most important part. So happy you're here. And I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye. And I just want to quickly say, connect with me, of course. Connect with me. My Instagram is at the self love knowing. This podcast Instagram is at not your dad's leadership. And my website is theselfloveKnowing.com if you want to download any free resources to get started on your feminine leadership practice. Go ahead. Feel free to send me a DM and let me know what you thought about this podcast and anything that you want to hear on upcoming episodes, anything that you're struggling with. I'm happy to address it through this feminine leadership lens, self-love lens, and, energetic lens. So I can't wait to see you on the next episode.